Welcome to Healing with the Diamonds podcast. This show features Larry and Kay Lynne Diamond, along with guests who are passionate about helping families heal together. Through personal stories and powerful conversations, you'll hear real-life experiences and practical tools for reclaiming health. Please note, the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health routine. If you're enjoying Healing with the Diamonds podcast, we'd love your help spreading the word. Leaving a quick review or rating on your favorite podcast platform helps others find us and helps more families start their own healing journey. Thanks so much for listening. Now, here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. I am Larry Diamond.
And I'm Kay Lynne Diamond.
And this is Healing with the Diamonds. And we are very excited to welcome an old friend and amazing human, Sam Feltham, the Director of Public Health Collaboration UK. Sam, thank you for being here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. So ironically, being one of our first podcasts, the first podcast I was ever on was with you. And it was right around a year into my health journey. And I'd lost 100 pounds. And then the first time we were on as a couple on a podcast was also on Smash the Fat. And everyone can go to YouTube and check out both of those videos. So can you take us back to the Smash the Fat years? Because you were one of the people that I found in this personal trainer turned citizen scientist. Can you fill people in that might not be aware of those years? How you became Sam Feltham, personal trainer, citizen scientist, Smash the Fat.
Cool. So it all started university, really. So I was a website designer and I'd done a year of working straight out of university. And I decided I didn't want to sit at a desk for the rest of my life. So I decided to up sticks and use the money that I'd earned from website designing to go to New Zealand and train as a snowboard instructor. And from there, I did, 7 seasons going from Northern Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere. And it was just an incredible time in your mid-20s, just shredding the gnar, as they say, and partying and things like that. But it was in my last season in Banff in Canada in 2009, 2010 that I decided enough was enough. I kind of really needed to settle down and sort my life out, really. And so actually the second half of that season, I gave up alcohol and I focused on completely improving my health through diet and exercise, basically. So I'd done a complete 180 of eating whatever I wanted and drinking a lot to being sober and being very health conscious. And during that time, I decided that my next steps were to move back to the UK and train as a personal trainer. So I applied for the European Institute of Fitness. And over the summer of 2010, I trained to be a master personal trainer. Yeah, I qualified, when was it? It's probably July 2010. And then after that, I moved in with my brother in central London and started just doing one-to-one personal training, a gym. And from there, I tried to slowly build up my personal training business, but it was quite slow at first, unfortunately. So I was looking for other things to do within the world of fitness. And in 2010, it was really the uptick of boot camps, fitness boot camps. So I decided to set up fitness and fat loss boot camps called Smash the Fat. as you've alluded to already. And part of that, I decided that I would do a YouTube channel and a podcast and things like that as part of the marketing. And over kind of, the next few years after that, I kind of slowly but surely built it up. And the major thing that gave me some notoriety was these overfeeding self-experiments that I did. So I decided I used to be a bit of a calorie believer, but then after 6 months of training people, I could see something's not right. It's not working. And coincidentally, in 2010 is when Gary Taubes published his kind of edited version of Good Calories, Bad Calories called Why We Get Fat, which was great timing for me. And so I decided to start advising low-carb diets ad libitum to my clients. And the weight just started falling off. So it was in 2013 that I decided I wanted to demonstrate this in an experiment. And the only way that I could do it as a kind of, naturally lean individual was to overeat. So I did 3 different diets for 3 weeks each with 3 months in between. And I ate twice as much as I usually would on each diet. And the first one was low carb real food. The second one was low fat fake food. And the last one was very low fat real food and vegan as well. So I kind of tried to be as broad as I could, basically. I ended up in a 40,000 calorie net surplus over those 3 weeks. So that takes into account exercise, loss of calories from fiber, and the thermogenic effect of protein. And on that, the calorie formula calculated that I should have put on 1 kilograms, but I actually only put on 1.3 kilograms. And my waist actually went down by 3 centimeters as well. So it was quite a surprise that I'd only put on a little bit of weight and I'd actually lost circumference on my waist. So that was a really interesting finding. But where it really started to take off was the second experiment, the low-fat fake food one, which is kind of, your standard American diet, really. Lots of ultra-processed food and everything low-fat. Anything that's marketed low-fat I was eating. But I managed to get it so that I'd actually ended up in the same net calorie surplus, 47,000 calories. So according to the calorie formula, once again, I should have put on 6.1 kilograms. But over those 3 weeks, I actually ended up putting on 7.1 kilograms. So I actually put on more than the calorie formula said I should have. And I ended up putting on, 9.25 centimeters on my waist. Just a few inches of my waist, which was not great in just 3 weeks for a naturally lean individual like myself to just kind of go from that to being basically overweight. So that was quite eye-opening. And then this third one, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it to be the same net calorie surplus. And that was really because of the amount of fiber that I was eating, so the daily recommendation for fiber in the UK is 30 grams a day. And on that last vegan diet, I was eating 175 grams of fiber every day. A lot more than you kind of meant to. So it's just absolutely incredible. On that, I ended up in a net calorie surplus of 40,000 calories. So, 7,000 calories less than the others. Recalculating with the calorie formula, I should have put on 5.2 kilograms. And in actual fact, I ended up putting on 4.7, so actually kind of slightly under, but still significantly more than the first one, even though my net calorie surplus was more. So it was quite, incredible that, the comparison between the two, the net calorie surplus was less on the very low fat real food vegan diet, but I'd put on more. So what's going on? And obviously, as you guys well remember, it caused quite a storm on the internet, and I had everybody piling in to give their 2 cents. But here we are, and I'm still alive to tell the tale.
Yeah, that's great. It started some great conversations, right? To say the least. I'm curious, what were your blood markers like? Like, did you have them done after each round, and what did that show you?
Yeah, I didn't actually start doing that until until the second one, sorry, unfortunately. However, actually, I did do it at the end of the first one, in fact. I didn't do it at the beginning. But what's interesting is that at the end of the low carb one, my blood markers like triglycerides, blood glucose, HbA1c, insulin were the same as at the start of the low fat fake food one. So before I even started, it seems like it didn't change at all. Now, over the 3 weeks of the low-fat fake food one, my triglycerides quadrupled, and my glucose actually only went up by 1 millimole. So I was fairly resilient in that respect. But my HDL dropped by a third as well, which, as you well know, is not good. And then I'm trying to remember what else had happened. Those are the main things that had happened. That my HDL had dropped and my triglycerides had quadrupled. And from a feelings perspective, I had mild asthma as a child, and kind of doing the snowboarding and things, I'd got really, really fit, even though I was eating rubbish. I'd got really, really fit, but I could still get out of breath sometimes. But when I'd made that change in that last season, all of it went away, really. So that was incredible. But just on this low-fat fake food diet experiment, all of that came back. I was getting out of breath going on my cycle commute to work, which is, you're not racing or anything like that, you're just going at a leisurely pace. That was really shocking that all of my asthmatic symptoms had come back, and my sleep was broken. I was snoring in my sleep as well, and everything like that. So kind of from that angle as well, those markers all got worse during that time, but they didn't change on the low carb real food experiment. If anything, I had kind of more energy, which was really interesting.
And that waist size going down, so a few pounds could have been muscle. And you just described something that worked as a health coach for 6 years and been helping people since my journey started, and my wife was the first one I helped. And I have something called Embrace the Suck. Like, once you choose to consistently do low carb, high fat, nutrient dense real food, even before the weight loss, you start feeling amazing. And I had, ironically, the asthma and so much more, and severe IBS within a month, even though I had lost 2 pounds. Not bad but my IBS was at least 80% resolved. But even today, if I have seed oils at a restaurant and stuff, I can get joint pain that I normally don't have ever now. And I call that Embrace the Suck. So within a few weeks, you were feeling the suck of the common modern diet. And that's really powerful.
Very telling. Thank you.
The Public Health Collaboration UK. So can you talk about how that came about, what your vision was for the impact that you wanted PHC UK to make, not only in the UK, but I can absolutely say it's making an impact everywhere on Gaia or planet or everywhere on the globe. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so kind of the next bit of evolution in my career was in 2015, when I'd grown Smash the Fat to 10 locations around the UK, and I kind of felt myself at a philosophical quandary, basically, in that I could focus on developing that private business and try and affect change that way, or I could kind of try and create this organization, a non-profit organization that would focus on creating the systemic change that we want to see. Now, two very different approaches in that with the kind of the private business, obviously, ultimately it's for profit, and, you can get into all sorts of troubles with that. And so I couldn't let it go, in terms of wanting to set up this non-profit that could create the change that I desperately wanted to see, which is to just improve dietary guidelines for starters. And so I pitched this idea to the likes of the Unwins, David and Jen, Trudy Deacon, Ian Lake, Joanne McCormick. These are all GPs and clinicians in the UK. And they said, great idea, sounds good, but where's the money going to come from? Which is always the problem with non-profits. Yeah, exactly. So I said, right, let's just do an online crowdfunding campaign, see if there's an actual appetite for this and take it from there. So we did this online crowdfunding campaign in February 2016. And over that month, we ended up doubling our target, which was fantastic. And that kind of gave us the quote unquote seed money to get things going. So that was really, really good. And over, the next 9 years, we've gone from kind of, a fairly small organization to quite a budding mid-sized charity that's actually kind of co-authoring open letters to the Medical Guidelines Association in the UK with the Dietetics Association, who originally were kind of quite against what we were saying, but just over the past 9 years, the BDA, and all credit to the British Dietetics Association for putting their neck out in a way to call upon NICE, which is the Medical Guidelines Organisation in the UK, to update their dietary guidelines for type 2 diabetes, which would include remission as an achievable goal for people with type 2 diabetes. And one of those methods should be offered to patients should be low carb, which is absolutely fantastic. So it only took us 9 years to get to that point, and NICE will be updating their guidelines in July. We'll see if they make any specific mention to low carb, because incredibly they actually included it as an option in the weight loss guidelines. So there's already precedent that it could get included, but we'll just have to wait and see. But even if, it just clearly states in the NICE guidelines that remission is an achievable goal in type 2 diabetes through, individual methods, then that's really, really positive, because that'll tell all of the healthcare professionals that keep saying that type 2 diabetes is a progressive disease. It's not. It's totally possible to reverse it and potentially put it into full remission. So that'll be a big step forward in helping people heal and helping society as a whole, which is kind of our grand vision as a charity, is to help cultivate a society where everyone enjoys good metabolic health. Now it's quite expansive and quite wide, but from that vision kind of comes meandering with purpose in lots of different areas, and type 2 diabetes is one of our major ones, but also food addiction, ultra processed food addiction specifically.
Yeah.
But also childhood health as well, and improving the health of our children, which is so important for all of us.
Perfect. I'm going to go off script just a little bit because you mentioned ultra processed food. And I've heard, sadly, that the UK is not far behind the US in percentage of ultra processed foods. Darn speaking English countries, Australia and so forth.
Exactly.
How did the book hit in the UK? I know I've suggested it to so many clients here, ultra processed people. But what did you see the discussion in the UK? It's a powerful book.
Yeah, very powerful. And Chris Van Tulleken's done a lot for pushing the message of better health for the public, really. It really landed, and I think that really kicked off kind of the discussion around ultra processed food. And I know there are a lot of nuances within it, but I think it's like on the net, there's been a net benefit in terms of the discussion, really, to help us find a way forward, because it's so difficult to see a way through this total mess of a situation that we've got ourselves in terms of health and everything. It's been really impactful. So yeah, I've got great hope that discussion and conversation will continue, and hopefully before too long we'll make great strides in improving the health of the public.
Larry always mentions that the PHC UK website has a lot of great resources, specifically the RCT scorecard. Why don't you share? Because over the last 9 years, I'm sure you guys have compiled a lot of great resources that people listening would want to access. How would they access that?
Yeah, so if you go to the PHC website, which is phcuk.org, then you go to resources on the menu bar and then evidence, and you'll find the randomized controlled trials in terms of weight loss between low carb and low fat, but we've also broken it down with participants that have type 2 diabetes as well. And the simple way to get to it is phcuk.org/RCTS. That'll get you directly there. But it's been an incredibly powerful tool, and I'm so grateful that people have shared it here, there, and everywhere. But just for like any viewers and listeners that haven't come across these, we have summarized in a summary table. We've laid out the actual trial themselves with the number of participants in the low carb arm and the number of participants in the low fat arm, and have put the low carb weight loss and the low fat weight loss and whether it's actually statistically significant as well, which is important when you're analyzing scientific studies to see if there's actually a statistical significance, because if it's not statistically significant, potentially it could have just been by chance that, you know, an outcome was better than the other one. But of those, we've got 72 RCTs in total in that table, and off the top of my head, I remember that it is 63 have greater weight loss for low carb versus low fat, but of those 63, I think it's like 37 that are statistically significant, and of the others, 2 are equal in weight loss, and the remaining 7 are greater weight loss for the low fat arm. However, none of those are statistically significant. So when you actually look at the statistically significant outcome, then it's actually like 37 to 0. And, you know, if you had an American football team that won 37 games in a row, you know, it's fairly conclusive that they're the best. You know, they've what I forget how many games there are in an NFL season, but that's probably like 2 or 3 Super Bowls, I'd have thought.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Kay Lynne and I and our daughter were lucky enough. I don't remember which conference number this was, but we were at the Manchester one, and
number 2.
It was. Yeah, it was absolutely
Awesome.
delightful. I still remember our daughter going up to, you mentioned the Unwins, Dr. David Unwin, and asking if he needed any more coffee or tea, but
Bless.
Just lots and lots of memories. And also, we were speakers actually at Real Food Rocks. But what I'd like our audience to know, I'm so happy about this, because hopefully our audience, you know, there might be people that have never heard of you or PHC UK. So talk about the conference, and also what I think would be cool is, where are the best places? This is for public health and it's a charity. You make all these presentations available for free around the world, which I think's awesome. So talk about that, and how, I mean, I know when I started in 2013, I would geek out and watch like 100 hours of stuff. You know, my Netflix was nutrition, healing. I'm like, oh my God, that was my binging. So if anyone wants to be a PHC UK annual conference binger, so yeah, talk about the conference and how someone can binge, or, you know, 2 or 3, whatever.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. So whilst I'm speaking, if the viewers and listeners just want to go to youtube.com/PHCUK ORG, that's PHCUK.org, then you can start, you know, putting all the videos you want on your watch later playlist. But basically, as you mentioned, we've had an annual conference for the past 9 years. We just hosted our 9th. It started off in Birmingham, then we did Manchester, which you attended, and then we did 2 in London, and then we went up to Sheffield. Actually, we had 2 online because of COVID. Basically, we did the 2 virtual ones, and then we went down to Bristol as well. And then the last one was just in London again. So we circle back around to London. And it's partially because we're just kind of getting too big for some of the venues. We need to have fairly large venues now. Yeah, exactly, which is great. And this year in particular, the theme was prevention or prescription, and we had discussions and presentations on GLP-1 injections, so the fat jabs, if people are unfamiliar with that term, GLP-1, and then also around seed oils as well. We had discussions around that. Also cancer was a really big theme of this year. We had Professor Thomas Seyfried presenting alongside Dr. Isabella Cooper and Dr. Matthew Phillips, who are great minds in this space. And then finally, to kind of round up the conference, we had a discussion around the future of healthcare, because it's great for us to kind of point out all of the current issues, but we've got to start thinking about how we can actually improve things for the future, which is kind of really where our focus is as a charity, is actually creating the change we want to see. We've got several projects going on under the banner of PHC. The Lifestyle Club deals with type 2 diabetes remission, Liberate deals with ultra processed food addiction, and Real Food Rebellion deals with childhood obesity. And those are projects that are actually trying to create the change we want to see, because however hard you keep on telling the government that there are these issues, they're not going to be the ones to actually create the changes. I mean, if anybody's an example of that, it's obviously Elon Musk with SpaceX. He's pulled space travel out of the hole that it was in during the kind of the noughties and post space shuttle era, and he's completely transformed that. And so it kind of takes an entrepreneurial mindset, in particularly in this case when it comes to health. My hope is that keeping it as a non-profit so that we don't have the issues around kind of the capitalism can have in terms of shareholders and things like that, where you're kind of getting external influence even though you don't want that external influence and things like that. So trying to kind of avoid that in the realm of health is kind of what we're trying to achieve with this, but also keeping an entrepreneurial mindset in terms of creating for helping people become healthier.
Awesome. Well, switching subjects a little bit, here at Healing with the Diamonds, a big part of our focus is healing as a family. And you have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so I just wanted to ask you, how has the real food lifestyle impacted you as a father and as part of your family unit?
Excellent question. So thankfully, I'd improved my health and had been following a real food lifestyle for, what would it be? 7 years before my daughter was born. And I'd kind of helped my wife in the same way that you had, Harry, in terms of improving her lifestyle. So we were kind of in a really good place in terms of our own health before having a child. So when it came to actually helping her lead a real food lifestyle, we were at that place from the get-go. She was breastfed for at least 9 months, and she was probably doing morning and night feeds still up until maybe 18 months, even off the top of my head. But from that as well, the real food was always the thing. Like she'd just be having scrambled eggs and broccoli basically, which is probably about as simple as you can get, but it was totally working, and she loved it, and she continues to this day in terms of having a real food lifestyle. Now, not to say that we're 100% perfect. She ends up at parties and there's fake food everywhere and the cake comes, but what I do is that I try to mitigate that stuff. So I help her with making wiser choices from the food that's available. So thankfully there's at least some real food on the table with some, carrot sticks and some cucumbers and some sausages and things like that. And they might not be the most perfect sausages, but at least it's some fat and protein. So it's better than, stuffing themselves on chips and things like that, And so guiding her on that. But then when it comes to the cake, we do is that we usually get the slice arrives on her place, and we actually cut that in half and say you can eat half now and then half another time. So we've cut the kind of the glycemic load in half already, and so that goes in a napkin, and we take it home and it ends up in the fridge, and we put it on the top shelf in the fridge. Okay, because more often than not she forgets and it ends up in the bin. So kind of, we've kind of mitigated it a little bit that way, and so it's just things like that you need to try and do. So if you are given treats when you're out and about and you're trying to stick to a real food lifestyle for your kids, and you don't want to kind of make a big deal of it and create some sort of issue about it, cutting things in half is a good idea, and so you have some now and some later. And usually they forget about it later. Or particularly with candy and things, she often gets candy at the end of like a dance lesson or at football, soccer. Mm-hmm. And what we do is that we say, right, we're going to put that in your sweet pot or your candy pot. And so that goes in the pot. And then again, she totally forgets about it. There's just like a pot of sweets and candies high up in the cupboard that she's completely forgotten about. So she kind of gets the rush of yes, it's you've got it, but she doesn't actually have it. So that's what I try to do in terms of my kids.
Those are brilliant.
Yeah,
that's going to help so many. We did Halloween switch because we never wanted to deny our daughter actual trick or treating, and then she would churn in her haul for cash. And we have a Disney store by us, and when
that's great.
So
just switch out the candy for cash.
But we at least our daughter, and we're thankful for it. My wife's a teacher. Our daughter has been in public school from kindergarten on and at least for us, it got a lot harder. The peer pressure, not peer pressure, but the fitting in, and
societal pressure, isn't it?
Yes.
Societal pressure. And also we were wondering, this was part of our journey, and our family adapted. But when we mentioned that we were a gluten-free family and we did have the genetic test and we had the real life experiences first, then genetic testing, that all three of us have the genes for non-celiac gluten sensitivity, but we could see it in real life. And I did want to point this out, and I'm a stickler for this. I try and be the best citizen scientist I can. If one human, just a single human, can put their diabetes in remission, then every organization in the world, if they want to be scientific, has to say that that's possible. It actually only takes one person. So I'm just keeping it real that, as citizen scientists, we have this high level of honorableness of actual science. That's how science works, everyone. One person, then you have to say it's possible. But sorry, getting back to...
Nice, spot on. Yeah.
Keeping that entrepreneurial spirit, we're entrepreneurs for reclaiming our health. But
awesome. It's exactly that. Yeah.
How did that work with, family? And I'm also curious because this comes up a lot when we visited the UK, and we've loved it. And I want to go off script a little bit here because of the UK. I want to talk about farming and ranching and it's such a great climate for whole real food. But two questions first. I don't know if you guys are, pretty much gluten-free or grain-free, but there's not only the larger society, there's also family members. And did you have conversations with family members that might have other grandkids or nieces and nephews that aren't being raised real food? How did that go? And then just a little bit about, is regenerative stuff becoming part of the conferences and so forth?
Yeah, so in terms of kind of my wider family, we're all generally real food lifestyle followers, really. Everybody in my family focuses on real food first, and are very fit. I mean, again, not to say that all of my family members are perfect. My big sister fully admits that she probably has one or two glasses of wine more than she probably should, and probably a bit too much chocolate. But she's an ultra marathoner. She literally just completed a 24-hour race and ran over 100 miles in 24 hours. She's absolutely nuts. But generally follows a real food lifestyle. Yeah, incredible. And then my brother, also very fit and follows a real food lifestyle. And they've always, over the years, they've asked me questions and things, and I've kind of directed them, and I've never forced my opinions upon them. And I generally disliked to force my opinion onto people. I really try to open the conversation, is probably the best way to do it. I think it's the most constructive way to do it. And then my little sister, I don't know if you've heard, but she's actually now living with a stage 3 brain tumor, which is terrible. But she's literally just started a keto diet in order to help stave it off. She's just finished, I think it was about 8 or 9 months of radio and chemotherapy. But now that that's completed and it's stopped growing, which is great. But now that she's in a place where she can really follow through with the keto diet. So I'm really, really happy that she's going to be doing that, and hopefully that will give her many more years to come and continue to be the medical marvel that she is. And if people want to check her out, she's very well followed on Instagram. She's called Abigail Feltham. So if you go search Abigail Feltham on Instagram, you'll find her. She's got a couple of 100,000 followers, I think. She's very funny. She's very humorous about her experience and very open about it as well, because she had a brain tumor. She was an alcoholic and a drug addict. So she's kind of gone through the whole rigmarole of that life can throw at you. And she's very open about all of that. So she's quite inspirational if people would like to help themselves with a bit of inspiration. And then in terms of regenerative farming and things in the UK, we had a panel in the 2023 conference, which is again on the YouTube channel. So make sure you head over to the YouTube channel. And I think the title of the panel was are cows destroying the environment or something? No, are cows killing us or something like that?
No, everyone,
yeah, exactly.
No.
The short answer is no. But there was a wide sprawling conversation with that, and it's something that I've even had to point out to friends in particular, is just about particularly the nuances between factory farming in the US, for instance, versus standard farming in the UK. So standard farming in the UK is actually, pasture raised. So most cows in the UK are on grass fields. So as long as you're eating British beef, then you're generally getting grass raised beef, which is great. So, for the public, just making sure that it's got a British stamp on it, then you're going to be most of the way in terms of regenerative farmed cows, basically. And then kind of in terms of the actual welfare of the animals as well, Britain's got the best standards in the UK. So according to the Food and Agricultural Organisation, which is kind of like the food arm of the UN, it's the UK, New Zealand and Austria that have the highest ratings in terms of animal welfare and farming standards. So you couldn't ask for more in terms of your standard meat. But then there are even better ones. There's a organisation called Pasture for Life in the UK that gives farms a stamp of approval that they're on pasture for life, because when it comes to your standard beef, for instance, I think it's 90% on grass, and then kind of grain and silage finished type of things. So but if you want pasture for Life. Yeah, you go to the Pasture for Life website, find a local farm, and then you can kind of get that from there. I mean, just down the road from me, there's a farm that has Jersey cows, which has the highest fat content milk. And they sell it raw, so it's great. So I can just go down there, get some raw Jersey milk, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, no, there's lots of that in the UK for sure.
That's great that you guys have so much available, and also so much of the standard is higher as well. That's great for everybody in the UK. I wanted to circle back around talking about family. And one of the things that we've noticed with our daughter is the more we involve her in the decision making around food and preparing food, we see more of a buy-in. Now, of course, she's now 14, and so that becomes more important as they get older. But I just wanted to see, like, how important is, I'm sure you guys cook a lot at home, obviously, how important or how do you involve your kids in the process of food prep or purchasing food?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's kind of quite easy in that they just want to get involved. Particularly my son, who's 3 years old. You know, he's just eager to help. Really, he's like, "Daddy, I want to help." And I was like, "Great, cool." So I grabbed the kind of the stool that he stands on, and he literally at the weekend, I make almond flour or ground almond pancakes, for instance. And he helps me measure out the almond flour and then put it in the jug and helps me crack the eggs and then helps me blend it. And then he's even attempting, and I'm being very careful with actually putting the batter into the frying pan, you know, because he just really wants to help. I'm basically doing it for him, but he's holding the spoon because obviously I don't want him to burn himself on the frying pan. But, you know, it's no, he's just super keen, really. And I know what it's like as a parent of young kids, that sometimes it's better just to it can feel easier to say no to your kids and say, I need to do it, just go play somewhere else. But you've really got to try, and if you do have the time and, you know, it's just like a lazy Saturday, Sunday morning, like, stop yourself and really just accept their help, even though it's going to take 2, 3, 4 times longer than it usually would. Because it's just it can be so annoying, but you've just got to accept that you've got to involve them, even if, you know, you'd prefer to have them go play and put them in front of the TV and things like that. You've got to resist that, because resist the easy route, and really try and get them involved.
Yeah, we often say that raising a real food kid is hard, but raising a real food kid, not a real food kid, is even harder. And, you know, we see that with our daughter, especially when she's not getting a real food diet on a regular basis. So many other things kind of break down. And I'd love that you talk about, you started your kids young, you know, from the get-go, you were able to start them with real food. And I think, you know, to everyone listening, the younger you can start them, it's definitely easier.
Absolutely. And those first 7 years of life have so many neural connections. And, you know, when I think of real food kids and, you know, balancing out, you know, fitting in and all of that, I always wanted to never compromise the amount of nutrients that our daughter gets and try and minimize the toxins. So that's what you were saying with the putting the candy away, half the cake. So maximizing the nutrients, minimizing kind of the harm of the modern diet.
Big time. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if this is going off book a little bit, but I would include screen time in terms of toxins. You've really got to be so careful with screen time, and like avoid screens as much as you can. So school, like, they get enough at school. I think, in my opinion, like they do actually quite a tremendous amount. Sorry, Kay Lynne?
I said, so the same in the UK, because we're seeing that in the US as well. They're on Chromebooks or iPads for a lot of the delivery of instruction. So you're correct. Yeah, they are getting it. at
Yeah,
school.
totally. Yeah, at home. So like our general approach, and I don't want to say that it's a rule because I mean it's a rule to me and my wife, but to the kids it's just the behavior. So there's no screen time during the week. So Monday to Friday, 0 screen time at all. And then on the weekends, we even try to avoid it as much as we can. And it's really only if we've been out all day, you know, going to a park or something like that, then when we come back at like, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock or whatever, then they might have half an hour of a TV show whilst I'm preparing dinner. Just because, you know, they're tired out from the day, that's great. This will kind of, you know, be something nice. And kind of the added benefit with that we have is that my wife is French, so we're raising them bilingual, so they both speak French better than I can, which is incredible. And yeah, so all of the TV that they watch, any of the TV that they watch is actually in French, so there's kind of an added bonus to it in the at least that's giving them some immersion at the same time for French. So yeah, just minimizing the screen time. And I have zero plans to give my daughter a smartphone. I know it's easier said than done.
Don't let the genie out.
Yeah. Don't do it. Yes, we
Exactly.
regret.
we regret. Yeah, we waited we waited a long time, but we still, you know, at 14, you know, she has one now, and it is difficult. I won't mince words. Wait as long as you can, and when you get one, when they get a phone, if they have to have one, make it a non-smart version. Definitely.
Exactly. It's kind of my hope is that we'll make it a dumb phone, and hopefully by then, so she's 8 at the moment, you know, got at least like 5 or 6 years before the conversation actually properly arises, but hopefully by then kind of the non-smartphones that you can get can still link to things like WhatsApp, but with like a graphite screen and things. So just kind of making it non-color, very simple, and kind of avoiding that dopamine hit basically. So she'll have 0 social media, but like she can still go on WhatsApp, have maps and things like that, but like not the social media or YouTube even, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's the plan, but I know easier said than done.
I see a book coming out, Dumb Phone, Smart Kid.
Yeah.
Larry,
do it. Yeah. Larry, go for it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to lead by example for health, but we're going to be a work in progress. But I've learned a tremendous amount from you. And I'm, you know, if we introduce some people to you, the 5,000 calorie experiment, Dr. Jason Fung has a good write-up on it. You know, you hit very well in 2013, 2014 with, you know, Professor Tim Noakes, you know, the Mark Sissons of the world. I would say the people that I love wisdom in real life, break fast, research. What is either a citizen or a professional scientist supposed to do? They're supposed to research, like not keep saying the same thing, but questioning themselves and the current groupthink and research maybe for some more nuance or potentially, possibly, the whole paradigm is 180 degrees wrong. So I really love the word collaboration. Maybe we can end on that because that's so big. I know I can be very passionate, but we have a lot of personal friends, including the Unwins, Professor Noakes, MDs and PhDs. And really that word collaboration between passionate people, regardless of background. Some will be professionals and have degrees. Some will be amateurs, you know, and that comes from the word love. But like your ultra marathon sister must love what she does. No one would run 100 miles in 24 hours if they didn't love it. So I think that collaboration is such a healthy word. So maybe we can end on that, like why you pick collaboration and where you see that going, you know, that collaboration.
Yeah, so the word collaboration kind of came out from the fact that, you know, we have to work together to to create the change that we want to see. But it's also leaning into the fact that in this age of information that we've all got access to at our fingertips, that healthcare professionals and patients have to have a collaborative relationship, really. Because in the past, it was quite authoritarian, in that the doctor told you what to do and you did it. But that's no longer the case, really, because you as a citizen of the world can go out to PubMed and find a research paper that could teach the healthcare professional that you're working with something new. A prime example of that is David Unwin, in that it was a patient that taught him that low carb was a safe, effective and viable option for somebody to lose weight and put their type 2 diabetes into remission. And he was open to that learning, and from that came all of his work afterwards. He's helped just within his own practice, he's helped over 150 people reverse their type 2 diabetes. And not to mention the hundreds of thousands of pounds in savings for the NHS that he's made as well. But obviously kind of like just his influence over others also creating the change is exceedingly powerful as well. So kind of just to round it up is that, we have to work collaboratively, not just kind of, working together in terms of creating systemic change, but in relationships as well. You have to be open to learning new things. Don't pour your cup out, as the old Buddhist kind of, exactly. You can't fill a cup that's already full. You have to empty your own cup so that you can then take on new information. You have to be open to that. So just be open, listen and learn and lead from there.
I love that. Those are great words. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time out of a busy day as a father and a husband. So we are
and director.
Yeah, you're busy all the way around. So thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you both for having me on and for doing everything that you do.